Hi, everybody. My name is Sandeep Goel. I'm the CEO and co founder of DigitalEx. I wanted to spend 15 minutes today to walk you through the DigitalEx platform. Before I get into the actual application, I wanted to start with a couple of slides to level set where we fit within a typical enterprise IT organization. If you look at the slide, on the left and bottom is the sort of heterogeneous infrastructure that we typically see for an enterprise scale IT org. So they typically have some mix of public and private cloud assets. From a public cloud perspective, there's typically some mix of Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and GCP. From a private cloud on-prem perspective, typically some mix of VMware and Kubernetes. And essentially, where DigitalX fits is we sit on top of that infrastructure and we collect real-time cost data and usage data, all of which gets routed into our data lake. It's probably worth diving into the private cloud piece. The private cloud piece sort of naturally doesn't give you OpEx style cost and usage information. We have a virtual appliance that we've developed that lives within your data center and essentially converts CapEx to OpEx. And again, that data flows to our data lake. Once the data's in our data lake, that's when sort of the magic of our multi-tenant SaaS application takes over. We're able to auto-discover all the resources down to the VM running. We have a machine learning forecasting module that will intelligently predict based on seasonality and consumption and growth where your spend will be next month, next year, based on the baseline of where it is today and the historicals. We have cost allocation capabilities that will allow you to partition your spend however you want to partition it, whether that's by business unit, by geography, by application. Basically make sure you're allocating the right costs to the right P&L. And then fundamentally, we have cost optimization. And this is where most of our customers want to start, which is how can you help me save money? I have this heterogeneous infrastructure on the left. How can you help me spend less on that infrastructure? And our early customers save anywhere from 25 to 45% on infrastructure costs. For those of you that are familiar with this space, cloud cost optimization, FinOps, there certainly are other vendors in this space. And where we shine and where we try to focus on are a couple of use cases that we're outlining here in this gray box. First is we support public and private. We are hybrid cloud cost optimization. I think it's really worth doubling down on that. There are plenty of vendors that support public cloud, as do we. Where we do best is when people are running hybrid, public and private. That virtual appliance technology and metering engine that will convert CapEx consumption to OpEx is really part of the special sauce of DigitalEx. So we really do look for that, and our early customers love that capability. Second thing is cost. If you look at some legacy vendors like Cloud Health, Cloudability, they generally charge anywhere from 2 to 3 or even more % of the overall customer cloud spend. The way our systems are architected, we're able to operate at scale at a much lower total cost of ownership. And we can operate down to 0.5% of spend. So for customers sort of looking for cloud cost optimization, but at the lowest cost possible, we tend to be a very, very good fit. Third thing here is something called Cloud Compare. Cloud Compare is a technology that's not quite out yet, but will be coming out later this summer. And essentially what that is, that's a simulation engine that will, at a per workload or per application basis, simulate what it would cost to run that workload on different clouds. So for example, the Cloud Compare technology could tell you, you're running this workload on Azure. If you move it to GCP, it'll run 12% cheaper. And you have this other workload on GCP that you should move to your private cloud because A, you have capacity, but B, it'll run 21% cheaper in your private cloud. So essentially matches workloads to clouds. We're very excited about this. We think it's sort of game changing for customers operating in a multi-cloud world. The last point here is partner centric. So the system is designed to be delivered and serviced via partners. So one of our early partners is a company called ISG. We have another early partner called Infosys. But these are people with FinOps practices that want to deliver our product, maybe as part of a managed service or maybe as part of a white label offering. But it's designed to be delivered via channel partners. All right, with that, let me dive into the product. So if you see the application, you're looking at our UI. And before I dive into the actual UI, let me show you the nav bar. And you'll see here on the left, there's sort of 3 main areas. There's Inform, there's Optimize, and there's Operate. Inform is basically giving you a snapshot of what's happening today in your infrastructure from a cost and resource perspective. Optimize is great. That's my infrastructure. What am I doing? What can I do to save money, right? And we look at what resources can you turn off. We also look at, do you have the right reserved instances and savings plans? But there are a variety of ways we can help you save money. Operate is governance. How are you operating from a compliance perspective, from a security perspective? Are you hitting budgets? So sort of three main areas. There are other things in the application as well, but those are sort of the three areas that our customers focus on. If you look at cost under operate, this is where we are here. You're going to see multiple things. You're going to see a dashboard where you can look at your total cost month over month, along with the trend line, along with the forecast. You're going to look at your top accounts, where are you generating the most dollars, top services, top locations, whether in a pie chart or in a map. And all of this is clickable. So you could click on this and the whole context would refresh to show you just the cost and services from being serviced out of this data center. You'll also see a cost chart here. In this case, you're going to see costs split across Google, Amazon, Azure, and VMware. The gray bar is the forecast. So this is, I mentioned earlier, we have a machine learning forecasting model that predicts where you're going from a cost perspective. And this isn't just simple weighted average. This is machine learning based, machine learning trained forecast models that look at consumption and seasonality and a variety of factors. All of these charts are modifiable. So if I wanted to look at spend daily instead of monthly, I could look at it that way. If I wanted to look at, if I wanted to take Azure out and I want to take GCP out, I just want to look at AWS and VMware, I could look at that. So all of these charts are clickable, filterable, and gives you the data that you want to see in the context that you want to see it. One other thing I'd say here is we have the notion of perspectives. A perspective here, you'll see a variety of sort of test perspectives on this demo account. But the idea of a perspective is it's a logical grouping of IT assets. So you might have a perspective for HR applications. You might have another perspective for European business unit. And essentially you click on one of these and the entire context refreshes for that perspective only. So it's a way for you to slice and dice data in different ways. Okay. Next thing we'll talk about is resources. So first chart was talking about cost. The flip side is resources. So here we're going to look at all of the resources running, sort of total number of resources along with the trend line, the top resources by costs. And then you'll also see the individual line items for each of the resources. If you want, you can do a little bit of research on one of these resources and pull up some information. Next thing I'll talk about, probably really where the money is savings. How do we help customers save money? And this particular demo set, don't be worried about the small numbers. It's just a demo set. Typically, the savings here would be much, much larger. You could probably add 2 zeros to this number. But essentially, we're looking at what are the monthly savings possible. And we categorize them in 3 buckets. Orphaned are resources that we've detected are essentially not being used. You can safely shut them off. You should safely shut them off and save money. The meter's running on them, but nobody's using them. Idle are resources that we see very, very low resource. So you can see here on this one, for example, we're seeing 0.015% CPU. You should be able to shut it off, but you need to probably double check to make sure that there's not some dependency, but probably you can shut it off and save money. And then right size are things that you are using, but you've over provisioned from a hardware perspective. So you can save money by essentially having less or cheaper hardware at that problem. Next way we can save you money is what we call coverage. And essentially the idea here is, and for those of you that are cloud practitioners, you're going to know this, you can buy cloud capacity in one of 2 ways. You can either buy it purely on demand. It can go up and down as much as you want it to go up and down, but you have maximum flexibility, but you pay a higher price for that flexibility. The other way you can procure capacity is through reserved instances or savings plans. And the idea is you're committing a certain amount of capacity, so you have a little bit less flexibility, but you get a much better unit price. So for most organizations that we work with, we want to see them, assuming they have relatively stable workloads, we want to see them have about 90% of their capacity being procured via savings plan and reserved instances so they can save money. And then you have 10% that's on demand, and that goes up and down depending on spikes in seasonality or whatever the case may be. So if you look here in the upper left, we have a coverage number. Here you'll see 62.35%. Essentially, that number says what percent of the consumption in this demo account is being consumed via reserved instances and savings plans. So 37+% is on demand. In our mind, that's too high. You can look at the consumption over time, and there is some variation, but it's also not, going 10x month over month. So we would say, hey, maybe this is the floor. You should probably have coverage at maybe the 80% or 75% range and save money, right? So the idea here is with proper usage of this data, you can optimize your reserved instances and savings plans and save money. Last thing I'm going to touch on is operate. So we have a couple of different things here. We have the idea of compliance, and we have multiple compliance policies that we've built into the product. Ultimately, where we want to go is we want to build compliance frameworks like GDPR if you're a European company, or HIPAA if you're a healthcare company. And you can see here all the things based on a framework perspective that you are out of compliance on, and then your team can go take action on. We also have the idea of security. So where are you exposed from a security perspective? And we've sort of grouped them in high risk, medium risk, low risk. And if you look at it, it looks like compliance. It looks like savings. It's the same underlying engine. We have an engine that's constantly parsing all of your cost and resources and looking for things that don't look right to us, whether it's an anomaly or it's a security flaw or it's a compliance flaw or you're leaking cost somewhere. Last thing I'm going to show you is budget. And you have the ability to kind of define budgets, typically at a perspective level. If you remember what we talked about earlier, a perspective. Typically at a perspective level, you can specify, here's the budget, here's the current spend, here's where you think you are from a forecast perspective. And then you can actually set up notifications on these budgets. So, as you get to 80% of your budget, you get notified via an email or a Slack message. Or as you exceed budget, you can get notified. And for me, I was previously the COO of a SaaS business. I would have used this feature personally more than anything else. We always had the issue where we would budget about $100,000 a month for AWS costs. And there'd be a variety of months where that $100,000 number would be $225,000, $275,000. And we didn't know about it until after the fact. So with this functionality, I could have set up an alert. Hey, as soon as the forecast goes over budget, notify me so I can go take action, or my engineering team can go take action. I hope that helped. This was a very quick, very brief overview of the platform. If this was interesting, please let us know. We're happy to schedule more time and go into a lot more detail on the platform. Thank you very much.